Okay. Okay, so hi guys. So welcome to the Portfolio and Resume Workshop. This is the second event in the APX virtual workshop series that we're doing this semester. If you came to our last one, thank you so much. So this is being recorded and we're gonna post it on the APX Scopus YouTube channel after the event, probably sometime this week, and then we'll send out the link to that to everyone who registered, whose email we have, so you guys can watch it if like your Wi-Fi gives out or like you have to leave early or you were late or something. The next event in our series is going to be a stress relief and organizational skills workshop called Design Your Mind. And it's going to be run by a recent alumni on October 27th at 8:30 p.m. because there is a time difference for her. But we'll be sending out more information about that soon, so look out for that. And if you want to keep up with more of our events, you can follow us at APX Scopus on Instagram. Okay, so helping us out today, we have Kristen DeWolf and, oh, I guess not, Colleen isn't coming. Okay, that's fine. I just wrote her down in the intro. But yeah, so we have Kristen here from Career Services for the School of Architecture. And we also have Patty Bevins, who is the Director of Career Services for BPA. So it's gonna be cool. We'll have like an architecture and a design perspective. So we're really excited. So I will turn it over to them if they're ready.
Do you want me to go ahead, Kristen, or you want to go
ahead?
Yeah,
no, I would say go ahead with the resume stuff and then I'll follow up with portfolio.
All right. Well, hello all. As she mentioned, I'm Patty. I work over in VPA. I'm happy to be with all of you from the School of Architecture today. As we were chatting before you all came on, I was saying there's so much opportunity for collaboration between the design students and the architecture students. And so when I was invited to participate tonight, I was happy to learn for the first time that this group existed. So I recognize that many of you here tonight are architecture. I'm going to try to help them get more of the industrial design students to participate because I do, from my corner of the campus, see the great opportunities for you all to collaborate and learn from one another and perhaps grow as professionals, not trying to get you to change your course, but really to understand what each other are learning in the classroom and careers that everybody is preparing for. So Kristen and I know each other well. We chatted this morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about resumes, using some resources that may be familiar to you. I oftentimes go into resume presentations like, oh, they already know all of this. But I quickly learned that many times you don't. Maybe you just have been using your high school resume. Maybe you haven't taken the time to update it during, I'm not sure what year you all are, but during your time at the university. And so if it's redundant for some of you, please be patient. It won't be long. And for others of you, if you want to jot down some notes, or I'd be happy to send the PowerPoint slides afterwards to any of you who want to reference them later at a time that you might be developing your resume, either between semesters or in preparing for opportunities that you're applying for. So I'm going to share my screen. You guys can, Kristen, feel free to jump in here at any point. And those of you with questions as we go along, if you want to post them in the chat, or if you want to just wait until the end, whatever you prefer, I'm fine with. Okie dokie. Okay, do you all see my screen now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to probably go through this in 10 minutes or so. It won't take long, but again, a refresher for some of you, or maybe the first time for some of you as well. So your resume is a very important tool for you, not only when you're applying for jobs when you're graduating, but also throughout the course of your time at the university as you're applying for internship opportunities, part-time jobs, research, Perhaps you're connecting with a mentor or an alum who's asking you to share your resume. So you want it to be a fluid document that you're updating on a regular basis. And so we want to give you some tips and suggestions here today to have a solid resume that is very reflective of your experiences and your goals. So for starters, we want you to focus on the skills and qualities that are most relevant to your goals and most relevant to what you're applying for. And you want to present it from a strengths-based perspective based on the needs of the employer. And you'll know the needs of the employer if you're responding to a job posting by what's written in the job description, or if you are applying for an opportunity or for networking with somebody and you don't necessarily know the employer's needs. Perhaps you can do some research on the company site, looking at their strategic priorities, who some of their clients are, and being able to present how you relate to those areas. So we're going to talk about some prep steps, a few of them. The first one is know the industry you want, or excuse me, know what the industry wants, okay? So we want you, when developing your resume, to think about the jobs that you've had and the responsibilities that you've had in each of those roles. And then think about what the firms are looking for, okay? So how does your experience relate to what this firm is looking for? Can you adapt your bulleted statements? Can you adapt your descriptions to be more closely aligned with what they're looking for in the role, okay? Keywords, you probably have heard people talk about quite a bit. The words that you use on your resume play a critical role in the evaluation of your candidacy. Many larger firms will use software to scan your resume to look for keywords, whether it's a software or a skill or whatever it may be. So you want to make sure that your keywords stand out and are reflective again of what the employer is looking for. Step two is really knowing yourself, knowing what you have to offer in the position, okay? So think functional skills and personal qualities. You are not your experience. You are not only your experience, but you are you. So think about the skills that you've gained in addition to the qualities that you have as an aspiring architect or an aspiring designer that will best serve this company in this role. So I often say, back to the days of 6th grade English class or whatever it is where they teach you how to brainstorm, get out a pencil and paper and make a list. What work experiences have you had that relate to the position you're applying for? Jot them down. Think about academic achievements. Have you been on the dean's list? Did you get a scholarship? Are you a peer advisor? Are you an ambassador for your college? Things like that that show leadership and accomplishments. Community service, unique talents and skills. I think for many of you in architecture and in design, you are creative, right? So you're not only creative perhaps in drafting, but you might be a good fine artist. You might be a sculptor. You might have other tangential talents and skills that would serve you well. And then global perspective, travel, and cultural insights. Some of you may be international students. You might have experience living and learning abroad, but others of you may have spent a semester abroad or a summer abroad, or perhaps just traveled with your family or spent some time on a mission trip. Think about how that might be of value to a prospective employer. So in building your resume, you want it to be in chronological order, meaning, one job, well, reverse chronological order. So that your most recent job will come first, and then you'll work backwards from there. I always say by the time that you're a sophomore in college, you really want to work hard to get your high school experiences off your resume, unless something is really remarkable, right? Unless you've done something really remarkable in high school. So you're going to want to try to be involved in things that will help you to not only grow and learn, but also replace those high school experiences. Okay. So most relevant descriptors at the top, limit your resume to 1 page only. I know when you apply to college, that is not the rule. Some people come in with resumes from high school that includes all the activities you've been involved in, and you think that is what you're going to do when you get to college. When you're graduating, when you're finishing your degree program with multiple internships and lots of engagement on campus, you still only want a one-page resume. So limited to that, one page, regular portrait orientation, not landscape, and on a typical 8.5 by 11 document. Again, you'll use bullets or graphics, and you'll tie your format and header to additional pages that you might have, meaning your cover letter should be the same style, your reference sheet, and anything else that you might include. So everything is really tied together aesthetically. So think about what you want to have on your resume. You will not have space for all of these categories, okay? You will all, of course, have an education section, an employment section, professional or related experience, or related experience. Some of you are involved in research on campus, have been involved in design competitions. Many of you probably have lots of strong computer skills. Honors and awards, we talked about, exhibitions, publications, all of these things, right? So look at this list, think about where you might have the strongest content and which areas you really think will represent you well, not only as a graduate or a student in the School of Architecture or the School of Design, but as a uniquely qualified candidate. What sets you apart from everybody else who's going to be applying for this job or this internship that you want. So, you know, you could have a really strong GPA, you could be enrolled in this degree program, but what else are you doing, okay, that's going to make somebody want to meet you? It's going to want to say, I want to call this person and meet this person. And if you are a first or second year student and you have, you know, many years to go here, think about, you know, what's an exhibition? How can I have an exhibition? You know, how can I get that on my resume? Or I haven't really thought about community service here in Syracuse. How can I get involved in that? And think about how you want to grow so that you can have these additional areas of experience on your resume to make you uniquely qualified. Okay, so the content. Some of the obvious things, your name, your address. Typically these days, not many people are putting their street address on their resume. People aren't mailing things to you anymore. When I graduated from college, not to make myself sound old, but yeah, we put our full mailing address because people would respond to you and say, we got your application. Now, obviously that's all done through email, but if you're applying in your hometown and you want them to know that that's where you're from, you can put city and state. Cell phone with area code, of course, email address, use a Gmail address or some other professional email. Don't have designstudent21@gmail.com, but sort of make it first name, last name, or something professional. If all else fails, just continue using your Syracuse email. Many of you likely have websites where you share some of your work. You can put that URL on there. And then links to your portfolio and LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn, it says customized URL. You know, when you set up your LinkedIn page, by default, it gives you a URL. If you go to your own profile page and you look in the address bar, it's going to say linkedin.com/in/your name, and then a whole bunch of gobbledygook numbers. You can edit that on your LinkedIn profile page by going to settings. Kristen or I can help you if you don't know how to do that. But you want to get all those numbers off of there so that if you put your LinkedIn URL on your resume, you don't put all these obscure numbers on there too. Okay. If you happen to be Joe Smith and Joe Smith is already taken, you can do Joe Smith 2021 or Joe Smith, whatever. But just customize it so it's not ugly. And then this last one, clearly an architecture reference, which is above my head.
Yeah, so you do want to include also if you are registered with NCARB and you are utilizing internship hours toward your AXP, number of hours. So many of you may already know this, that you need to have 3,740 AXP hours in order to sit for the ARE exam. So you might even want to have on there that you have completed 240 AXP hours through NCARB. You can either include that in the heading, or you can also include that next to the specific experience where you gained those hours.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so that's a lot of information for the heading. You don't need all of that. Again, I know some of you as creative types might have a different section where you will put your website or your portfolio, but that's the content that you want to share with recruiters, all or some of it. So an objective is an optional category for first, second year students, perhaps students without a lot of experience that are trying to fill the page of their resume. They will do an objective. It's, you know, clarifies the purpose of your resume and tells the reader what your goal is. You know, third year architecture student at Syracuse University seeking summer internship where I'm going to learn A, B, and C, something like that. You don't need one. You know, people have opinions about whether or not they're useful or not, but, you know, as a young student, you know, as you're approaching your first internship or your first professional experience without a lot of related experience, it may be useful to convey what you're hoping to gain from the experience you're applying for. When should you use an objective? Obviously, I just said not always needed. The next section is your education. All right, so for all of you, you're going to say Syracuse University, School of Architecture, and then list your degree. So I think it's Bachelor of Science. I don't even know.
Bachelor of Architecture, yeah.
Oh, it's Bachelor of Architecture. Okay. Oh, that's on the next slide, I see. So Bachelor of Architecture, the degree that you're going to be earning, and then your anticipated graduation date. If you're going to put your degree earned as Bachelor of Architecture, you don't necessarily need to put the major of architecture below it, but your anticipated graduation date, you know, Syracuse, New York. If you have spent a semester abroad, either, you know, out of the country or in New York City or wherever it may be, you would want to include that experience in your education section as well. So it would be the bachelor's degree, and then below it would be semester abroad, wherever that would have been. You can include your GPA. As it says, the general rule is if it's above a 3.0, you can include it. Some people do, even if you're a very strong student and you're running out of space on your resume, you know, it's optional. And any honors and awards that you have earned at the university or related to your degree program would be included there. And then if you want to add selected courses, I always view that also as an optional section. If you have some unique minor or interest area that you're taking additional coursework beyond what people would know as typical architecture courses, you could include that there as well.
Can I just say one thing very quickly about education? People are very proud of where they came from. People are very loyal to their high school. The resume is not a place for, you know, as Patty mentioned before, the goal of your resume is really to remove a lot of that high school stuff and focus on college and professional. And that includes the education section. So I know I see a lot of resumes that have Syracuse University, but then also have high school listed on there. You do not want to include your high school, okay? So make sure that it's college level education that you're including on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, I sort of mentioned this. You're going to list your bachelor's degree on there as well. And then moving right along to experience. Again, you have very limited real estate on your resume. Think about what you want to include. You know, as you approach graduation, hopefully you've had higher level of learning through internships. But as you're going through these 5 years for all of you, in fact, you know, part-time jobs, on-campus jobs, think about how you can convey the skills that you're learning in these positions as something transferable or something valuable to your growth and professionalism. If you're a teaching assistant, if you've been in competitions, excuse me, or you've had really significant course projects, I would encourage you to include them as well. When you list your experiences on your resume, you want to, of course, name the employer. So if it's something that happened on campus, if you work, you know, as a TA, your employer is Syracuse University. So the name of your employer, city and state, your title, dates, be consistent in formatting. So if you're going to put, you know, fall 2020, and then in your next job, you're going to list January to May 2021. I don't like the way that that looks. So either follow a month-year format, follow a semester format. If you're going to use, you know, numbers, you know, 9/20, be consistent about that. Okay. So guidelines for your descriptors or your bulleted statements. This is what when you're talking about your jobs and your experiences. You can't list everything. You don't need to say, you know, every responsibility that you had. You want to include the things that are going to help you make your next move. Okay, so relevant skills and qualities. It's better for the reader to use a bulleted format. You know, you hear the, you know, people look at your resume for 10 seconds or something like that. They're never going to read every word. So when it's in a paragraph, it's harder to scan. So we encourage the bulleted format. The highest level and most relevant experience would be at the top of the bulleted list of each experience. And you want to use strong action verbs. You can find all sorts of lists on the internet for action verbs. You can also find them in job descriptions. So when you're applying for a position, I said before, look for keywords that are relevant that you want to include in your resume or in cover letters, but you can also, you know, use those strong action verbs in the descriptions of your bullets, okay? So you're going to want to describe what you did, how you did it, and why. The more that you can answer those three questions, the better or the stronger your resume will be, okay? You don't want people to be reading it to say, why did you do that, or how did you do that, or what were the results? If you can give them all that information in a bulleted statement, you're going to be doing yourself a great service, okay? Quantifying where appropriate, you know, percentages, numbers, whatever you can do to express results is you know, highly regarded. Okay, leadership and affiliations and community service. It's really important for people that to recognize that they're hiring an individual, right? So, you know, you can have a 4.0, you could be the best architect in the world, but they want to know that you have strengths in other areas too. So leadership and community service go a long way. There's a million different areas where you can be involved in this. So again, maintain the same format you used in your experience section. You do not need to list bulleted statements. Again, you're not going to have the space. So if you volunteered at the Syracuse Homeless Shelter, you can just, you know, put that Syracuse Homeless Shelter volunteer, you know, fall 2020 or September through December 2020. Okay. You don't need to describe that whole experience. Okay. Skills. You're all going to graduate with many skills as a designer, as an architect. So you're going to want to list those software skills, hardware skills, any tools that you've used. Of course, language skills are very attractive to people. I like this bullet here. You don't need to say, you know, fluent in, knowledgeable of, or moderate, you know, moderate levels of, or whatever it may be that people put before their skills. You can share more in an interview. They can ask you about them in an interview, but just get them there that you have some knowledge, okay? And then if space allows, include interests. Again, it goes back to the human factor. If you have interests in art, or you have interests in music, or I don't know, whatever it may be that are not necessarily directly related to your academic program or your primary career pursuits that you think might be interesting to people, you can include that on your resume as well. So just a couple more slides here. Some examples. So we talked about the how, the why, the what. So if you look here, this is a position that somebody had as a construction assistant. Very common thing that somebody might say, or a bulleted statement might be, assisted with experimental stone masonry construction system. Okay, that might be what an intern did. or an assistant, right? But how did you assist? Why did you assist? What was the reason for evaluating? Okay, so you installed a roof and siding. How did you do that? Okay, so you get the point. As you read through some of these here, and as you look at your own resume as a result of tonight, ask yourself those questions. Did I explain the logic behind my work or the reasoning behind my work? So nobody's resume is perfect. It is forever a work in progress. You can be out of school for 6 months, 6 years, 20 years, and you will always be updating your resume, okay? I always tell students, if you show 10 people your resume, you're gonna get 10 different opinions, okay? But in the end, it's your resume. You have to be comfortable and confident with the document that you're sharing with people that represents you and all of your hard work. So make it a good representation of yourself. Make sure that you stand out. Make sure you're distinctive. And if you look at it now and you are like, I don't stand out and I'm not distinctive, well, find opportunities to be involved in things that will make you, that will be more reflective of who you are and your interests, okay? What else is on here? That's good there. And then, you know, check for grammatical and spelling errors. You will look at your resume over and over again. That's another good reason to have other people review it so that they catch any errors that you may overlook. Okay. And then this is the last slide. Actually, there's one more with our emails on it. But, you know, if you're going to print your resume, make sure you're using high quality paper. Oftentimes now we're just emailing them. But if you're going to go to an event, a fair, a networking opportunity, and you're going to bring your resume, don't just print it off your printer that's going to have like lines across it on flimsy paper. Invest in some attractive, high quality paper to print it out on, and just be consistent with your formatting. Make it look strong, and just show it around for evaluation. This is, I promise, the last slide. So always remember, this is your introduction to an employer or to an alum. This is what's going to get you in the door. This is how they're going to evaluate who they're going to interview, okay? So be a good representation of yourself, invest the time and energy. Don't go looking for internships or jobs if you're not prepared with your documents, because you're going to see a job that you're interested in. The deadline's going to be tomorrow, and you're going to put together something quickly that isn't a good representation of you. So invest in yourself by investing in the time and the tools to make your resume attractive. If you want individual advising, obviously most of you here tonight, I believe, are architecture students. Kristen and Colleen, of course, can meet with you to do that. I put Kristen's email address here. For those of you in the School of Design, I, of course, can meet with you. And as I said at the start, I was happy to be here tonight as a design advisor because there's so much great collaboration happening across the campus, and there's no reason why Kristen can't help design students and I can't help architecture students, even though it's not our primary responsibility. So if you see some sort of connection between an advising center on campus or, you know, another college on campus, feel free to reach out to those advisors, and I'm certain that they will be willing to help you. That was way longer than I thought. I'm sorry.
That's great information. Any questions before we start talking a little bit more about portfolios?
No, so let me unshare so we don't have that on the screen. Oh. Oh, my thing is so stupid. Sorry, I have to unhook from my monitors.
Let's see, there we go. I was able to unshare it, so.
All right.
So good. So if you guys do think of other questions and stuff as we're continuing to talk, feel free to throw them in chat, or you can even yell them out. Not a big deal. But so obviously your resume, typically when a company is asking for you to apply to a position, they're typically going to ask you for your resume. They're going to ask you for sample pages, which we'll talk about that quickly. And then they're also going to ask for your link to your portfolio. So 2 things to think about. Just like your resume, your portfolio is forever a work in progress. You are constantly going to be changing your portfolio throughout your career. Just like every time I look at my resume, why did I say it like that? Why did I put that descriptor? Let me change this up. And you're going to find yourself doing that as well. So one thing to think about too about resumes, just to put this out there quickly, simple is better. So I know, especially when you are of a very strong creative mindset, you want your resume to really have that creative flair that helps it stand out, which in a perfect world, yes, you do. But when you are submitting your resume into a company's applicant tracking system, which is the technology that you're submitting your application to, those tracking systems mess up the formatting of your resume, even if it's a PDF. So really having it just a very simple, I hate to say it, Word document, it is the best way to go. You'll want to save it as a PDF to try to lock that formatting, but companies use applicant tracking systems to keyword search the resumes that are in their system. And when you have a lot of creative flair and design to your resume, it won't pull out those keywords. Okay, so just thinking about that, and I'm happy to share around, sample resumes. I can get the attendee list here and then share around the sample resumes for you to be able to go by as well. Okay. But like I said, your portfolio, just like your resume, it's constantly going to be a work in progress. It's your calling card. It's your marketing tool. It's what's going to show employers who you are and what you're all about. So things you want to consider when you're creating your portfolio or changing your portfolio, modifying anything like that, is you want to think of your brand. So think about who you are. Think about the type of designer, architect you want to be, and you want your portfolio to really exude that, okay? Think about what you're passionate about. Think about those projects you've done, whether they're in school or on your own, or in an internship or wherever it might be. But think about those projects that really inspired you. Those are the projects that you want to make sure are included in your portfolio, okay? You do not need to include every single project you have ever worked on. You may still have projects that were part of your portfolio to get in to Syracuse that stay in your portfolio for quite some time, and then you'll have others that you're going to be changing in and out as you go forward. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're including your best work, and again, you're wanting to include the work that you're most passionate about. All right, so when you are looking at your portfolio as a whole, so you have all of your projects, you're picking and choosing what you want to use. So not only do you want to think about the designs that really stand out to you, but what is the story that your overall portfolio is going to tell? Okay, more often now, and especially right now, everything is being done virtually. Interviews are being done virtually, portfolio reviews are being done virtually. So you want to make sure that you can tell the story that your portfolio is showing, all right? You want it to all flow together. You want to make sure that it really kind of, it's a depiction of you as an artist, okay, and as a creative. So you want to make sure that you can tell that overall story. It does not have to be, and actually it's preferred that it's not just a chronological view of this is what I've done in each semester studio. All right. You want to make sure that your absolute favorite project is right front and center. because they are going to see the passion that you have for the work that you're doing when you're explaining it. You also want to make sure that you leave them so the final project is something that is really going to wow them. All right. And then the middle kind of just weaves together all of your experiences and that story. All right. You also want to make sure that your portfolio provides a wide array of skill sets. So maybe there's some hand drawing, maybe there's some charcoal, maybe there's some CAD drawings in there. You know, you want to show your wide range and all of the skills that you are capable of. All right. When you are looking at one specific project, you don't want it to just be the final project or the final piece. You want to show some process steps in there because it will help them understand that you understand that design is a process and you don't go from A to Z with nothing in between. So typically what you want your portfolio to be is 5 to 7 overall projects. And this would be, you know, really by your 4th, 5th year. You're looking at 5 to 7 projects, 20 to maybe 40 pages. Please do not go beyond that as far as being the portfolio that you are sharing with employers. I was working with a student earlier this spring and his portfolio was 135 pages. No one is going to go through 135 pages. You know, so if you're trying to wow them at the beginning and wow them at the end, you're losing them at the end because they will not see that. So 20 to 40 pages is a good number in total. Again, 5 to 7 projects, you know, so you're looking at a couple page spread per project for your portfolio. Okay. You want to think about when you're looking at your spreads, the individual spreads, you want to think about, you know, the white space and make sure that you're balancing the white space with the design and then also with the narrative that you're including on there about the project. Okay. You don't have to have a full description that's half a page long that tells you about the project that's on the next couple pages. You can have little small paragraphs embedded within the spread. Okay. But in those paragraphs, or if you do decide to do an introduction as to what they're going to be seeing the next couple pages, make sure the information is relevant. All right. Less is more as far as wording goes, you know, so making sure that it's the pieces that you found most exciting or the pieces you found most challenging and how did you overcome that. Talk about the medium you used. Talk about if it is a collaborative project that you've worked with somebody else on, make sure you give that other person credit. But at the same time, the pieces you want to highlight of the process are those pieces that you had a direct impact on. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. What you also want to do is you are going to have, and obviously those of you who are in architecture see my emails. I'm constantly telling you, make sure you're having your portfolio reviewed, have it reviewed, have it reviewed. Colleen and I are happy to review as far as the overall look and feel of the portfolio. Is it telling the story? What story are we getting out of it? You know, kind of that sort of thing. But really having the reviews done by people who are in the know. So by your peers who have been studying architecture, by those in the industry who, you know, are professionals and they've seen enough to know what looks good and what doesn't look good technically. But the same thing again as your resume, You show it to 10 people, you're going to get 10 different opinions. The same thing holds true with your portfolio. Your portfolio is yours. It's, you know, your story. So making sure that you feel it best represents you, not, you know, a representative from Populous and what they have to say about it. Okay, so take the feedback and then figure out what feedback makes the most sense to you and that you might agree with. Okay, and then use that when you're making changes to your portfolio. All right. Any questions about any of that? No. Okay. The other thing I wanted, oh, one more thing about your portfolio, and this holds true for work samples, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But if you are utilizing a project, maybe you worked on during an internship. Yes, you want to cite the name of the company that you did the internship and where the project came from, but do not focus on that. Okay, focus on the pieces of the project that you are all about, that were of most interest to you. Why would you want to use this in your portfolio? You do not need to use every project you ever worked on at any internship, just like every studio project. You do not need to include every single one of those. But what you want to do is the highlight reel of the projects that you worked on, okay? So you can call out the fact that you worked on this project at, you know, a particular company, but really highlight your experience with that project, okay? Same thing holds true when you're working in group projects. Again, give credit, but then talk about what you did in the project, okay? So like I mentioned earlier, when you're applying for jobs, typically you're going to be asked for a resume, you're going to be asked for sample pages, and you're going to be asked for the link to your portfolio. On your resume, whenever possible, especially those of you in architecture, please try to make a live link to your portfolio in the contact section. All right, so when you're submitting that resume in there, making that link live that the recruiter can just click right on it and it pulls right up your portfolio, whether it's through Issue or whatever other technology you decide to use, software you decide to use, including it right up there where it's easy to find is going to be much easier for the recruiter, and the less work they have to do to learn about you, the better off for you, okay? So you're also including sample pages. Sample pages, 2 to 3 pages maximum. All right, I've seen sample pages come in that are 5 to 15 pages. It's basically a mini portfolio, and that's not what they're looking for at this point. They are just looking for the highlights to the highlight reel in the sample pages. So 2 to 3 pages maximum. They can be separate pages. You can have, you know, 2 to 3 projects, 1 for each page, or you can do a mix in the pages to show the breadth of your skill set, okay? To show the hand drawing, to show the CAD drawings, to show that you understand the full range of skills that you possess and that you could potentially bring to the table. So they're going to look at your resume. They're going to look at your work samples, and you want to make sure those work samples are relevant to the companies that you are applying to. You know, so if you are looking at opportunities in urban planning, you don't necessarily want to show high-end design in your work samples. So you want to make sure that the work samples you're providing to that company are relevant to the job that you're applying to, okay? And then what they're going to do, they're going to take a look at your resume. They're going to take a look at your work samples. I want to learn more. Let me click on the portfolio. And then it comes to the interview. All right. So making sure that everything you're providing to them is you branded as a whole. So the font you're using on your resume, you want that to copy onto your work samples. You want that to copy into your portfolio. So everything is a cohesive package that you're presenting to the employer. Does that all make sense? Any questions on any of that? You guys are a really easy group. I know you're going to have your breakouts to review everything. One thing I wanted to mention, which Patty mentioned as well, you know, feel free to reach out to us if you want additional review of your resume or your portfolio. Feel free to email us as well, copies of it. I know for myself and Colleen, we either have, you know, you can reach out to me directly at kbdewolf@syr.edu, or we have our architecture email address, arccar@syr.edu. And we're happy to take a look, provide suggestions, and get it back to you. Usually it takes us about a day just to go through, you know, and offer you some suggestions on how you might update or whatever. But again, making sure that you agree with those suggestions and that it creates a document or multiple documents that make sense for your brand. Okay. Good, great. If there aren't any other questions, I definitely want to make sure that you guys have time to do your portfolio reviews.
Thank you so much, both of you. We really appreciate having you guys here. And it was, I think you guys covered everything. I learned a lot.